who lived around 400 BC, and he was the first person to come up with the idea of an atom. He actually used the word atomos, which is a Greek word for uncuttable, or smallest indivisible particle. One story to how Democritus came up with this idea was that as he walked on the sand, he thought of how the sand used to be pebbles. These pebbles would have broken apart to form the sand, and he thought that the sand would eventually break down into smaller particles, and so on, until it couldn't break apart any further. The particle that would be left was the smallest indivisible particle, in other words, the atom. There were really two main parts to his theory. Atoms are indivisible, and they are also indestructible. Democritus was far ahead of his time, but his idea lacked experimental evidence and was simply based on reason. At the same time Democritus lived, there was another popular idea to what matter was made of. This idea was proposed by Aristotle. Aristotle was another ancient Greek philosopher who lived around the same time as Democritus. Aristotle did not believe that matter was made up of tiny particles, called atoms, but rather matter was made up of 5 basic elements: earth, water, air, fire, and ether. Although Aristotle's idea wasn't correct, his idea was more widely accepted than Democritus' idea for about 2,000 years. Both Aristotle and Democritus lived before the development of the scientific method, and so their ideas lacked experimental evidence. It wasn't until the early 1800s that a man named John Dalton developed the atomic theory that would be based on his experimental evidence and observations.